She planned the trip on a Tuesday. No warning. We should get away this weekend, she said. I didn't argue. The bag was already in my head. I added the wooden mirror last. Oak frame. Heavy for its size. My grandfather's, then my father's, then mine. It never asked for attention. It got it anyway. I wrapped it in an old sweater and set it upright in the trunk. She drove. Music low. Phone face down in the cup holder. Screen dark even when it buzzed. Her sunglasses stayed on, clouds or not. She told me it would be good for us. She said it twice. Repeating a line always gives it away. The cabin was simple. A key under a rock, a single room off a narrow hall. One window looked at trees and nothing else. She called it perfect. She kissed my cheek and moved through the place like it was a set she already knew. I took the mirror inside and leaned it by the dresser. She glanced at it and looked away like it was just furniture. It wasn't. She knew I noticed. We unpacked in silence. She filled the fridge with 2 days of groceries and a bottle of wine that cost more than the groceries. My treat, she said, quick, casual. We were supposed to be saving. I let the silence sit. Spending tells a story. So does timing. She lit the fire early though we didn't need the heat. The flames gave her background for photos. She took 3, adjusted a pillow, took 2 more. I stood out of frame. I wasn't part of the scene she was building. I didn't make it a problem. When her phone buzzed again, she checked it with her body turned slightly away. Work, she said. No one at her job texts on a Saturday about anything urgent. I nodded. Some truths don't need questions. We walked a short trail before dinner. She talked about air and quiet, and how the city had been too much. She didn't ask me anything. She tied her hair at the first bend and kept adjusting it, not for comfort, but for control. I counted steps and thought about the mirror in the bedroom. The last time I'd seen my father use it, he told me people say more when they think the room is empty. He wasn't wrong. She stood in front of the mirror before we went out for a drive. Not long. Just long enough to check her face twice, then her mouth. No smile, no frown. Blank, like she was trying on not feeling to see if it fit. I watched from the doorway. She could feel my eyes. She didn't meet them. We ate by the window, the sound of the fire behind us. She poured wine, then more. She told a story about a coworker I'd never heard of, with details that drifted and landed in the wrong places. I let them fall. I asked if she wanted to talk about anything in particular. She said no, then said she was tired, then said we should plan another trip soon. 3 different answers to one question. Patterns write themselves. At night, she showered with the door unlocked. Steam pushed out in slow waves. I stood the mirror upright and set it by the opposite wall, not blocking anything, just visible. She stepped out, saw it, and didn't comment. She went to bed with her phone under her pillow. I didn't ask for it. I don't chase what runs. She slept late. I made coffee and moved the mirror again, into the hall where she'd pass it to reach the kitchen. When she did, she paused. Not for her face, or the frame, or the idea of it. She put a hand on the wood and then brushed a speck that wasn't there. She was rehearsing. I noted the scene and the stage direction. We drove into town for breakfast and gas. She turned down my card when I reached for it. I've got it, she said, quick again. New card, different color, bank I didn't recognize. Small thing. Noted. On the way back, she rolled the window down and let her hand cut the air. It looked careless. It wasn't. The second night was quieter than the first. She stayed on the couch and watched a show without watching it. Credits ran. She didn't move until they looped. I brought the mirror to the far side of the room and leaned it against the wall. It caught us both small, in the corner of itself. She got up and faced the glass like she wanted it to apologize. It didn't, she said. We needed this. I said nothing. She asked, "Are you okay?" I took a breath and let it out. She nodded at that, like she could call it an answer. She went to bed early. I stayed up and listened to the house not make a sound. We drove home on Sunday afternoon. She slept most of the way. The mirror sat behind her, wrapped and still. Nothing dramatic happened. It didn't need to. Quiet does the heavy lifting when you let it. Routine came back like a coat you put on without thinking. Work, dishes, laundry. Tara added late nights to the schedule and called them spontaneous. I didn't challenge the definition. She started leaving the house dressed for somewhere that didn't look like errands. Karaoke with the team, she said once, laughing at a joke I wasn't in on. I set a plate aside and covered it with foil. It cooled. She texted from the driveway before walking in, like she wanted to finish something first. Her phone used to live face up on the counter. Now it followed her, face down. New setting, silence for unknown callers. New habit, walking into the hallway to type, thumb moving fast, smiling at nothing in the room. I let the kettle click off on its own. The wooden mirror ended up in the bedroom, propped where the morning light caught it. Old oak, smooth backing, a small nick on the left frame my grandfather had made with the dropped ring. It showed small things, my tie off by a notch, her eyes bouncing past mine. She paused in front of it before leaving, checking nothing and everything. The glass did what I was doing, it observed. Money slid into the air between us without landing anywhere. She mentioned we should stay flexible with the house timeline. We'd agreed to a number last spring. Now she wanted to revisit it. The market's weird, she said breezy. She moved our budget sheet to a new folder and sent me a link that needed my request to access. I didn't request. She noticed I didn't ask. She kept it there. Receipts multiplied in the trash, then the recycling. I knew the boutiques, and I knew her closet. I didn't do inventory. I recorded patterns. A new card peeking from her wallet, metallic colored. It's for points, she said when I glanced. I nodded like that was the conversation. We were on the couch one night, a show pretending to hold our attention. Her phone lit up with a name I didn't recognize. She tilted the screen away and let it stop ringing. I didn't tilt with her. She got up, took the call in the bathroom, spoke soft, then excited. The vent carried bits back. No, there are options, she said. I just have to be smart. Water ran for effect. She finished with a small, nervous laugh that didn't travel well. The light under the door went dark. The mirror across the hall caught the door opening. She stepped out, glanced at me, and made her voice flat. Work thing, she said. I muted the show and unmuted it again. Some truths don't need questions. Late became later. She came home with hair that smelled like someone else's soap and a story that didn't require details. I put the foil back in the drawer. I didn't argue. I let the silence sit until it did its work. On Saturday she spent the afternoon running around. I handled the bills. Our joint account had a new transfer out, small but new. The memo line was blank. She used to leave emojis, tiny faces that tried to be cute about groceries. I logged the date and closed the laptop. Paper doesn't mislead. People try. The mirror watched us pass each other like commuters. I adjusted it by half an inch one morning and found her moving it back a day later. She wanted the angle she liked. Control hides in those small moves. She knew I noticed. She smiled at the glass, not at me. It didn't smile back. A friend texted me a photo from a bar, a group shot. Tara wasn't in it, but the background looked like a place she had named. Not proof, a note. I put the phone down and pulled laundry from the dryer. Warm shirts don't change answers. She floated a weekend trip again, sudden and light, like we could outrun something by driving toward it. We deserve a reset, she said, hand on my shoulder, pressure without weight. I checked the calendar, saw 3 payments due the following week, and told her I needed to finish a project. She held the look a second longer than normal. Release. Another time, she said, already texting. That night she stood at the mirror with the bedroom light off. Street light lined her face. No expression. She adjusted an earring she wasn't wearing. Practicing for something. Preparing as honesty in disguise. I changed the sheets and set her pillow on the chair. She came in quiet, checked her phone, then the mirror, then me. You okay? She asked. I exhaled. She took that as yes. She always did. In the dark, the house went still again. The refrigerator hummed. A car passed. In my head, numbers started lining up. Bills, transfers, miles, choices. Options carry costs. I started counting. Morning came with routines we pretended were normal. Coffee, keys in the bowl. Her phone face down by the wooden mirror. The frame caught the screen in a sliver of reflection. A message slid across it before the glass dimmed. Unknown name. A short line, can't wait. I moved the bills to the counter and sorted them by due date. She stood behind me, fixing her hair. The mirror showed her eyes, not her hands. I said, "Who's that?" Casual, not a demand. She barely looked. "Work," she said. "New client." Overeager. She smiled at the mirror, not at me. The smile didn't reach her shoulders. I didn't argue. The accounts page was still open on my laptop from the night before. She shut it with 2 fingers. "Don't obsess," she said, pouring coffee like it was any other Tuesday. I nodded. The budget wasn't an opinion. Numbers were cold and honest. 2 late-night rides that weren't on my card. A bar in a neighborhood she didn't frequent. An online boutique with overnight shipping and no box on our porch. I made a note. At lunch, a friend waved me over in the parking lot. Small talk first. Weather. Work. Then a soft drop. He had seen Tara at a wine place last Thursday. Not with the girls. With a guy. Clothes. He said it like it might not matter. I listened. Thursday matched a ride receipt with a generous tip. I thanked him and changed the subject. People tell the truth when you don't make them pay for it. That night she kept her phone within reach like oxygen. Notifications came and went under her palm. I reattached a loose screw on the mirror's hinge and set it at an angle. It showed the hallway and the edge of the kitchen. She watched me adjust it, and pretended not to care. She checked her reflection anyway, then the doorway, then the time. Precision gives itself away. She called it a work sprint week. Late meetings. Last-minute needs. I asked which nights. She couldn't name them. It depends, she said, grabbing her coat. Her car left the driveway too fast. I opened the banking app. The automatic transfer to our house fund was paused. No alert, just a quiet drop. I let the silence sit on the screen. Then I moved my own savings out of the joint account and into a separate one. Not hiding. Securing. I tried a simple question when she came back. Want to lock in a dinner Friday? She took too long to answer. I might have something, she said, already scrolling. The mirror was behind her. It held a stranger's posture. I kept my voice flat. Let me know. She agreed without lifting her head. Sure. The second clue didn't ask for effort. Her phone buzzed on the kitchen island while she washed a glass. Screen lit up. We good for tonight? No name. Just an initial. The message preview disappeared before I reached to hand it to her. She dried slowly. Who's M? I asked. She laughed a half-inch too high. Group chat. You don't want the drama. I nodded and moved a coaster. She knew I noticed. Money tightened around the edges. She floated the idea of opening a new card. For the points. And asked about our credit limits. I told her we were fine where we were. She pushed once, then dropped it. I saw the email later. A pre-approval confirmation in her spam. She didn't know I had that login. I didn't use it. I took screenshots and sent them to a folder named Utilities. People snoop. I archive. Saturday. I met the same friend at the gym. He didn't want to get involved. I didn't ask him to. He mentioned the guy again. This time a detail he hadn't realized was a detail. Hands on her back when they left. Like they'd done it before. I wiped the bar, checked the clock, and moved on to the next set. Repetition builds strength. Also clarity. Back home, Tara set a small bag under the bed. New nails. New scent. She waved away the cost when I looked at the receipt. Self-care, she said. I agreed. Care is a choice. I carried the wooden mirror into the hall to dust it. The frame was smooth from generations of hands. It offered exactly what it received. No extra. No mercy. By Sunday, the spreadsheet in my head had turned into a plan. I listed dates and places against charges and alibis. I reduced the shared bill pay to essentials and turned off autopay on anything with her name alone. She wouldn't see it for a month. She would think the app glitched. It didn't. I was done covering unnoticed gaps. She came to bed late and lay on her side, back to me, phone under the pillow like a teenager. I could hear the faint buzz against the mattress. I didn't reach for it. Proof was easy. Timing was harder. I wanted both. Monday morning, she asked if I was mad. The words sat between us like a test we both knew the answer to. I took the trash out. I texted a contractor about a quote we never use now. I checked my credit freeze and updated my emergency contacts. She watched me move through the room and decided I was fine. Some truths don't need questions. They need witnesses. I stopped asking. I started counting aloud, so she could hear nothing and understand everything. I kept the routine tight. Work, gym, dishes. No questions. She filled the gaps with explanations I didn't request. I let them pass. Tuesday, she left her wine half-finished and took a long shower. Wednesday, she laughed at something on her phone and turned the screen flat against the table. Small weather, noted. While the water ran that night, I went to the dresser. Not the top drawer, second from the bottom, where she kept scarves she never wore. The envelope was tucked under a folded green one, corner bent from being checked and rechecked. Heavy paper. A logo I didn't recognize. An investment memo. Wire instructions. Minimums. A projected return that read like a dare. Her name alone on the application. Our address. No mention of the house fund we had been nursing like a fragile thing. I took photos. First page, signatures page, transfer schedule. A second sheet with handwritten notes. Dates. A contact name. A lunch place we'd never been together. The amounts weren't small. Not catastrophic, but sharp enough to slice through the plan we had said out loud. I slid everything back exactly how I found it. I closed the drawer and listened to the shower cut off. The wooden mirror stood in the hallway, leaning against the wall where I'd set it after the trip. I hadn't hung it yet. It caught me bringing the phone up to check an alert, and caught me lowering it when the bathroom door opened. It always gave a plain answer. I held its gaze for a second, then moved on. In the morning, she circled the kitchen like she was late for something she couldn't name. "Do we still want to meet the mortgage broker this month?" she asked, casual in the wrong places. I wiped the counter and said we could push it a week. She nodded like that solved the problem. I let it. At lunch I checked our joint account. Small withdrawals had started 2 weeks ago, round numbers timed 2 days after her girls' nights. One upcoming transfer scheduled for Friday. I paused it. I set alerts she wouldn't notice. I routed my next paycheck to a separate account and printed statements from the last 6 months. 3 copies. One for a folder at home. One for work. One for a safe deposit box I hadn't needed until now. That evening I moved the wooden mirror into our room and set it on the dresser, angled toward her side of the bed. She looked at it, then at me. I didn't look back. She knew I noticed. She fell asleep fast, the way people do when they're sprinting all day on nerves. The laptop on her desk pinged at midnight. Messages synced to the desktop had never been turned off. I didn't have to guess. I opened the app and scrolled. The thread had a familiar tone I hadn't heard from her in months. Quick, glib, old shorthand sliding back into place. His name wasn't saved as a joke or a code. It didn't need to be. They talked about a catch-up. That had happened twice, and a third that might line up after the funds settle. He asked about the envelope by name. She sent a smile I recognized from the cabin trip. He told her I was steady, like he was describing a piece of furniture. Screenshots. Date, time, full context. I exported the thread and mailed it to a private account I hadn't used in years. I saved a local copy in a folder called Taxes. There was a photo of a menu from the lunch spot on her notes page. I found the restaurant online and matched the date to a charge in our account. A neat line formed from drawer to bank to chat. I traced it once, twice, until it didn't move. She turned in her sleep, reached for me, and missed. I stayed where I was. I cleaned the browser history I'd touched and left the laptop exactly at the desktop screen it had been on. A calendar week with too many empty boxes. In the morning, she asked if I could pick up dry cleaning. She was careful with her voice. I said yes. On my way out, I stopped at the mirror and adjusted the angle a fraction so it held the doorway. She saw me do it. She didn't ask why. At work, I called the fund's number from a conference room and let it ring to the automated directory. I wrote down the extensions, their names, the office hours. I didn't leave a message. I only wanted the outline. Back at my desk, I scheduled a meeting with a financial advisor under a pretense she would accept if she saw it. Insurance review. I moved nothing she could use against me. I moved everything I could protect. That night I made pasta and set her plate at her spot. She studied the mirror as she ate. She put her fork down without scraping the plate, and said she might go out Friday. I nodded. She waited for a question and didn't get one. Proof changes posture. Plans change tempo. I had both, and I wasn't in a hurry. Friday moved slow on purpose. I let it. I set alerts on the joint accounts. Daily summaries. Low threshold pings. I copied statements to a thumb drive and slid it behind the wooden mirror's frame. Quiet storage beats loud suspicion. She mentioned going out again over coffee. Same casual tone. Same waiting eyes. I rinsed my cup and wiped the counter. Have a good time, I said. Nothing more. She dressed in the bedroom with the door half closed. I ironed a shirt at the dining table and placed the mirror where it caught the doorway. She checked her makeup in it, then adjusted her hair without looking at me. The frame creaked when she turned it. A small sound. Telling. The group chat revived that afternoon. Memes and thin jokes. When my name popped up, 3 bubbles appeared, then nothing. One friend texted separately, "You okay?" I sent back a meeting time for next week. Kept it bland. People show their cards if you just watch. Late charges hit around 10. Wine bar, rideshare, a lounge I hadn't heard of. 2 minutes later, she sent a text, "Don't wait up." I turned the phone face down and sliced a lime the way my father did. Even pressure. Even wedges. I poured club soda and cleaned as I went. She came home at 1:17. Quiet shoes in the hall. A pause at the mirror. I didn't stand to greet her. She looked at me, then at the bag on her wrist, then at me again. "We'll talk tomorrow," she said. I nodded and clicked the lamp off. Saturday was logistics. I reduced the limit on the shared card, opened a personal account and rerouted payroll with HR. The pretense held. Annual review, housekeeping, Those phrases people don't question. I confirmed the advisor appointment and sent her the calendar invite. Neutral title. No alarms. She made noise in the kitchen like performance. Pans, water, useless cabinets. I set the mirror against the wall where the light showed the tiny scratches down the side of the frame. She ignored the eggs and scrolled through her phone with her thumb pressed flat. New case. New passcode rhythm. Her back told the story. At noon, a boutique charge posted. At 1, the envelope with the investment papers ended up on the counter like it had always belonged there. She tapped it. This is time sensitive, she said. She framed it like we were a team. I lifted the first page and read the names again. Her name alone. Deadlines circled in pink. We'll review it Monday, I said. She smiled without teeth. Afternoon brought visitors in the form of opinions. A mutual friend called to check in. He used words she uses, stability, routine, stuck. She had been working the room. I kept him on the line just long enough to hear which side he'd chosen, then thanked him and ended it. Some truths don't need questions. She picked the fight in the evening because she needed air. We can't keep doing this. I need more. If things don't change, I'm not staying. The script had pauses where my protests were supposed to go. I moved the mirror to the table and didn't fill the gaps. Silence hollows out theater. She tried again, louder without volume. You don't get it. I can't live like this. I'm not going to settle. You're safe. Your plan B. She placed the last 2 words on the table like a dare. She watched for the cut. I didn't give her one. I let it sit between us. The kitchen clock ticked in clean clicks. I turned the envelope toward her and waited for her to see the signature line. She followed my hand, not my face. When she looked up, I held her eyes for 3 seconds, then moved past her to rinse a glass. I didn't argue. She paced, then softened. I want us to work, she said, reaching. But you've got to show me. She wanted a bid. I handed her the advisor invite on my phone instead. Monday. We'll go through everything, I said. She read the subject line and tried not to flinch. She knew I noticed. That night, I packed a small bag, not to leave, to streamline. A change of clothes, essential papers, keys. I slid the thumb drive into the inner pocket. I wrapped the mirror in a towel and set it by the door like a guest ready to travel. She watched from the hallway and said nothing. Sunday, I reserved a table at a place our friends liked. A birthday excuse wasn't needed. I sent a group text, catch up dinner, been too long. She saw the names and examined my face for tells. I offered none. She said we should go. Optics mattered to her. Good. Before bed, I reviewed the week, a neat column of times, places, amounts, patterns removed out. I stacked the papers, tied them with a simple band, and left the stack under the mirror's weight. When she brushed past, her sleeve caught the frame. She steadied it. She saw herself steadying it. She had named me Plan B. I wrote the plan. The tip came mid-morning. An acquaintance at the gym mentioned a name, and a laugh she remembered from college. Harmless story on the surface. Old memories. Then she added the last line without thinking. They used to date. She watched my face for a reaction. I gave her none. Some truths don't need questions. At lunch, Tara suggested we get away again. Same tone as before. Same urgency dressed as spontaneity. I set my fork down and let the idea float. We already have dinner with friends, I said. Another time. She nodded too fast. Distraction had a schedule. I took the mirror from under the paperwork and wrapped it in a towel. The frame fit my hand. The glass held smudges I didn't wipe. I slid the papers back into the band. Receipts. Timestamps. Transfer forms. I didn't bring anger. I brought order. We arrived early. I asked the host for a corner with space. Friends trickled in with the weekend energy they always carried. Small talk. Weather. Promotions. Tara performed ease. She has a good stage voice when she needs it. I let her have it. Drinks landed. I waited until everyone had what they wanted in hand before I set the stack on the table. Rubber band. Neutral color. I placed it on the table and waited. Attention pulled around it anyway. Tara's eyes flicked to me, then to the stack. What's that? She smiled like it was a game. I didn't answer. I slid the first page free. Rides to the same address on late nights. Times compared against her messages to me. Running late, don't wait up. My pen circles were small, precise. The silence worked harder than any speech. She started quickly. You're reading this wrong. She reached, but I tapped the next sheet. Hotel receipts. 2 names on a reservation, her initials next to a point number. She pulled her hand back and tried the room instead. Guys, this is ridiculous. No one saved her. I placed the transfer authorization after that. Joint account to a new brokerage in her name only. The investment memo from the envelope. Growth opportunity, seed round, time sensitive. Our house fund balance next to it, lighter by the same amount. I let the numbers line up without comment. People respect math. Her voice thinned. It was temporary. I was going to put it back. She looked at our friends, picking for a sympathetic face. The man across from her looked down. The woman next to me pressed her lips together. Alliances moved without sound. I laid out the print of the conversation with the man from her past. Casual texts turning into planning. Weekends framed as networking. Screenshots don't care about tone. I didn't look at Tara. I watched the friends instead. They adjusted in their chairs. One stared through me and kept staring. She tried a new angle. We were separated in everything but paperwork. You know that. I didn't answer. Separation never happened. Our accounts told the real story. The dinner reservation also did. She reached for my wrist. I pulled the towel from the bag and set the wooden mirror on the table, face down first. Her hand froze on the table edge. I turned it over slowly and held it up between us, catching only her. The frame's nicks showed. So did her makeup line. This is what you chose, I said. Calm. Low. Enough. Color drained from her cheeks. Her pupils doubled in the glass. She glanced at the friends and saw herself instead. She opened her mouth, then pressed her lips into a line. She knew I noticed. I rested the mirror against the stack and leaned back. I didn't press further. I didn't offer outcomes. I let the room do the rest. She tried to laugh. It stumbled. You're being dramatic. I took a sip of water. Dramatic men raise voices and wave arms. I turned to the acquaintance who had named the past midday. She was here. That was not an accident. You knew him, I said. Not a question. She nodded once. College. They were a thing. The word sat like a receipt. The server arrived with entrees and stopped halfway. The table was a study in stillness. I slid the papers back into order, put the band on, and set my card on top. We're done here, I said to the server. He nodded and disappeared. Tara reached for explanation again. She grabbed the air where we used to keep benefit of the doubt. She found none. We can fix this. Let's talk alone. I stood. I didn't argue. I let the silence sit. I lifted the mirror and tucked it under my arm. She wanted a trip. I brought her a destination. We stepped out into the night without speaking. She hovered at my shoulder, searching my face for softness I no longer carried. I kept walking. The mirror sat under my arm like a quiet witness. Our friends were already at the back table. I had asked them to meet earlier in the day. Neutral place. Neutral lighting. No surprises, apart from the one she built for herself. They greeted us with careful hellos. I set the wooden mirror on the table between the water glasses and placed the folder beside it. I didn't explain. I didn't apologize for the venue. She tried to steer. This isn't, can we not? The sentence never found footing. I opened the folder and spread the pages in a clean line. Screenshots, bank statements, a printed calendar with overlapping alibis highlighted. No flourish. I turned my phone so the group could read the chat log, names and timestamps. Simple facts. I tapped a line with my finger. This one, I said. The screen showed her message to him. He's stable. Plan B if this stalls. Nobody breathed for a moment. People always think noise makes truth harder. It's the quiet that does it. She reached for the phone. I let her take it. She scrolled too fast, then too slow, then stopped on a transfer alert. This is work, she said to the table. It's an investment opportunity. I was going to tell him. She angled her head at me, performance aimed just off my eyes. I slid the bank paper closer to our friends. 7,800 from the joint account to a shell you opened last month. Everline Ventures. No discussion. I didn't add anything. They could read the dates. One of the friends looked down, then at her. He knew both of us. He didn't speak. She pulled a smile that didn't settle. You're making me look. This is private. Couples work through things in private. She touched my arm. I let the touch fall off. She knew I noticed. Here, I said. I lifted the mirror and propped it against the salt shaker facing her. The glass held her and the table and the neat row of her choices. You wanted a trip. We're traveling light. Her voice sped up. I didn't mislead you. I just needed space. We were stagnant. He's just a friend from college. We're collaborating. If you'd actually been present. She realized the word and tried to clip it back. Too late. A friend shifted in his seat. Another reached for her glass and moved it away. I stayed still. I spoke once more. Hotel charges. 3 nights. Same weeks as the late meetings. Same side of town as his office. I put down the printout and folded my hands. You told him I was Plan B. I let the line sit between us until it cooled. Her composure cracked in small ways first. The foot that wouldn't stop tapping. The breath caught halfway. Then the spill. Fine. I said it. Because you don't do anything. You wait. You watch. You make me feel like I'm being graded. I needed something certain. He offered. She stopped. She'd said enough. The table absorbed it. The room did the rest. I stacked the papers in a clean pile, squared the edges. Now that it's clear, we can proceed. I looked at the friends, then back to her. My direct deposit is moved. Your card access ends tonight. Joint savings are frozen until counsel. You'll get an email copy of the statements and the screenshots. Keep them. She reached for me with a softer tone, trying one last angle. Please, don't do this in front of them. We can fix it. I was scared. You're safe. That's good. She looked at the mirror, then away. I didn't mean plan B like that. I didn't argue. I watched. I noted. I moved on. I stood and slid the mirror under my arm again. The friends stayed seated. No one blocked my path. She rose as if to follow. I held up a palm. Small gesture. Enough. Tomorrow, I said. 9 a.m. My attorney. You should bring yours. I kept my voice level, not unkind. Final. Her face flushed with heat and then loss. She started explaining to the table again. It was louder now, words tripping over each other, logic thinning out. I didn't turn back to listen. I gave the server a nod on the way out and left the card on the tray. Outside, the air had that sharp, clean-edged night-skate when people pretend they aren't watching. My phone buzzed with a message from a friend. Sorry. Another. Here if you need. I put it in my pocket and walked to the car. Some truths don't need questions. They need a door and the sound of it closing. Morning came with messages. Missed calls from numbers that only appear when something breaks. A few long paragraphs and gray bubbles. I scrolled once, archived most, returned one. I'm fine. Don't pick a side on my behalf. I called an attorney before coffee. He didn't need drama. Dates, screenshots, account balances. I sent the files and the photo of the envelope I'd found, the investment she'd never mentioned. He asked 3 clean questions and told me what would happen next. It fit. I opened a new account and routed my paycheck. Froze the joint card. Listed assets and passwords on a sheet with numbers and boxes. Small clicks that closed large doors. The house felt steadier each time I checked one. Tara tried early. A text I didn't return. Then 2 voicemails, both choreographed, both ending with please call. That afternoon she posted a sunlit photo with a caption about fresh starts. I let it live, then asked the attorney to file. My answer would be legal, not loud. She arrived that night at the door with the old key. It didn't turn. She knocked fast, then slower. I waited a minute before opening. She looked past me into a house that had fewer shared things. Can we talk? I stepped aside but didn't respond. Silence did the editing. At the table, I placed a manila folder and a pen. The wooden mirror sat on the credenza, its frame cleaned, the glass catching the room in flat pieces. She glanced at it, at me, at the folder. This is extreme, she said, voice straining for calm. We can work. I slid the pen forward and looked at the paperwork. She signed the acknowledgement, and kept watching my face for a flinch that didn't arrive. The financial shift started to show on her. She asked about the account we used for groceries. I told her, once, what had changed. No apology. No explanation. You can't do that, she said, but the retainer receipt on my phone didn't agree. She tried to bring up the investment again, framed as opportunity. I forwarded the attorney her message and didn't reply to hers. She learned where the conversation now lived. Friends peeled away without sparks. A couple sent neutral check-ins. One asked me to hear her out. I answered with a single line. This isn't a debate. Group chats split into new names I didn't need. Invitations thinned. Quiet arrived and stayed. Useful. Paperwork moved. Disclosures. Valuations. 2 meetings where her voice jumped between contrition and arithmetic. She asked about temporary support. My attorney answered. She tried to look to me when the math pressed. I kept my eyes on the document. She knew I noticed. Move-out day was scheduled. She showed with boxes and a cousin to help. I had labeled what was hers and placed it near the door. No fights over plates or lamps. The wooden mirror watched from the entry, the way it had watched the trip, the late nights, the slow drift. She paused in front of it, then turned to me. I said stupid things, she said, that careful breathe between lines. Calling you that? I was scared. I didn't offer a rescue. Just talk to me, she said, stepping closer. Her hand lifted like she might touch my arm. I stepped back and looked at the keys on the bowl by the door. She followed my gaze and swallowed. There are conversations that end without words. This was one. She reached for a box on the credenza and her sleeve caught the mirror's edge. It tilted. She grabbed at it too late. The glass hit the wood floor and fractured into a crisp map of silver lines. The sound carried through the emptying rooms and stopped. She gasped, covered her mouth, and looked at me like the accident needed permission to be forgiven. I didn't move. It was your family's, she said, voice small. I'm sorry. I picked up the wooden frame and set it against the wall. The shards reflected us in slivers we couldn't use. I left them there until she and the boxes were gone. Then I swept slowly, pane by pane, into a bag that didn't tear. By the time night came, utilities were in my name, her email removed from the home account, the spare key returned. I took the final confirmation from the court and slid it into the folder with our signatures. The attorney's invoice arrived minutes later. Numbers sting, then settle. I moved funds and paid it without drama. Freedom has a line item. She tried again a week later, an apology typed like a proposal. There was a voice memo too, the kind of soft cadence used when logic fails. I let them sit in the thread unopened. I sent her the pickup schedule for the last 2 items, and the contact for her counsel. I didn't add anything else. The house settled into its new weight. Spaces looked larger. I left the wooden frame empty on the mantel for a day and then put it in the closet. Not a shrine. Just a reminder for later use, or not. The floors were clean. The calendar was light. I made dinner and ate it standing up. People think I'm unbothered. That isn't the point. The point is I don't negotiate with what shows itself in broad daylight. She named me a backup plan and expected me to wait. I don't. The decree arrived in the mail a few days after the email. I read it once, placed it in the folder, and closed it. No speech. No victory lap. Paper and ink, a door and the sound it makes.